Hi, my name is Jayreid. I'm a psychotherapist in San Francisco, California. And today I'd like to start what will be a two-part series on narcissistic rage. Today's focus will be on what it looks like, what it feels like, and where it comes from on the part of the narcissist. And in part two, I'm going to focus on the recipient of the narcissistic rage, whether it's a parent or a partner, and discuss some of the adaptations needed to be made in the face of such bouts of rage, and how that can be addressed after the abuse is over so that it doesn't have to kind of continue to constrict and impinge on one's quality of life. So narcissistic rage is very distinct from just somebody getting angry, even really angry. When someone who's not narcissistic gets angry, there's usually a good reason for it. They've been treated grossly unfairly. To me, I think a great example is the Black Lives Matters protests. I mean, these protests are calling attention to a systematic way of unfairly treating African Americans, but particularly by police. And when you see the various videos of a extremely harsh and disproportionate shows of violence against black citizens, it is quite sort of commensurate with the offense for there to be the expressions of anger that are rife through the Black Lives Matter protests. It is goal-directed, and it is aimed at correcting an injustice or an imbalance. In contrast, narcissistic rage feels very different. It doesn't necessarily feel goal-directed. There's nothing that can sort of satisfy or be offered up to the narcissist to kind of quell their anger. There's a real take-no-prisoners quality to it. And there's also a sort of sense that the narcissist wants the object of their anger to be left for dead. They sort of don't want to see them standing. It has this sort of skin-peeling intensity to it. And its purpose is just, in essence, to be expressed, not to achieve an aim, which I think is what makes the Black Lives Matter protest such a good foil to what narcissistic rage can look like. The Black Lives Matters protests, as I see them, are very goal-directed and definitely have a broader purpose than just expressing the anger, which is very much the case in narcissistic rage. Once the narcissist does get enraged at their, in essence, victim, it can only be endured. It cannot be spoken back to. It cannot be, whatever the seeming problem is, cannot be sort of repaired in the moment in the eyes of the narcissist. The recipient, if they are of in less position of power relative to the narcissist, can only kind of hope to come out on the other end. So why does this happen? In prior videos, and if you've seen any or read any of my blogs, I focus a lot on the psychology of the narcissist and why their sort of, inner solutions to a core sense of worthlessness make them extremely vulnerable to perceived slights or any sorts of reminders of that sense of worthlessness. Beginning with that state of that, dreaded feeling of worthlessness, which they cannot bear to, in essence, know, they come up with two solutions to try to, as antidotes, for that state. The first is they just sort of insist on the opposite, and using denial, and that is to claim that they are, in fact, more important than most people. They give themselves an inflated view of themselves, something we refer to as grandiosity. And the second tact, relatedly, is that they act in ways to coerce others to reflect back that inflated view of themselves. So both these strategies require constant upkeep because that sort of sense of worthlessness can be felt, I think, to be nipping at their heels, and they can encounter people who aren't cooperating with that with that grandiose view of themselves, which creates problems, creates that reminder that they feel worthless, and something must be done. So enter narcissistic rage. For people that the narcissist perceives to be under his or her authority, if those people fail to comply with the narcissist's sense of entitlement to be viewed as special or to be shown constant deference or obedience, then look the hell out, because that person is going to be met with an intensity of rage meant to do a few things, actually. So before I get into that, I want to just provide an example. In one case, there was a person had grown up with an altruistically narcissistic mother. And an altruistic narcissist really embeds their grandiosity in this sort of curated persona as being all giving, all nurturing, and so forth. And when this person would say, "Oh, I want to go out and play with my friends," the mother would seemingly perceive that as the son saying that he did not think she was worth enough to obey her orders of staying home, cleaning the house, sort of doing what she was telling him to do. And of course, she cannot bear to tolerate the being reminded of her own sense of her worthlessness that she encountered by virtue of her son expressing a wish to go outside the house and play with his friends. So what she did then is see the worthlessness that she felt reminded of as coming wholly from him. He was the one who was treating her as if she was worthless, and boy was she going to show him. So when this would happen to this person, she would grow incredibly enraged, begin screaming at him, assassinating his character for being selfish, inconsiderate, and the like, and all motivated by the thought that if she can make him feel bad enough, then she won't have to feel worthless anymore. She's, by virtue of these expressions of rage, seeing him as the worthless one for making her feel worthless, so she experiences that, or would claim the case to be, and the rage directed at her child certainly can affect that outcome, because a child is so, in essence, at the mercy of the parent's authority in a lot of ways. The function of this in the family, when a parent is narcissistic like this, is it can make the kids adaptively very wary of defying the narcissistic parent's sense of entitlement. Just like in the case of the example, the altruistically narcissistic mother had a sense of entitlement to others seeing her that way and obeying her as a result, because she was always so purportedly well-intentioned. And the children then quickly learn, do not flout that the narcissistic parent's sense of entitlement in that regard. And importantly, the narcissist's expression of rage is often very calculated. It only gets delivered to those, in essence, whom the narcissist thinks he or she can get away with expressing it to. So what you will often see is that at work and in other places where the narcissist doesn't feel superior, and or doesn't feel like he or she can avoid getting caught, then she or he may just act like a normal sort of colleague and get along. But that same person may go home and behind closed doors, where he or she has ultimate reign over, say, her children and maybe spouse too. That may often be where the rage gets directed. So it's all oftentimes calculated in the perception of the narcissist's estimation of the status of the other and what they might be able to do in retaliation. A very insidious calculation that gets made, and one that the victims are often quite aware of and keen to, and often are led to rightfully question, well, why me? Why does this person think they can get away with raging at me? And usually it has nothing to do with them being, a target, a mark, not being strong enough to, intimidate the narcissist to direct the rage elsewhere. Usually it's just by virtue of being close to the narcissist. And if you're a kid, you don't have a whole lot of option in that regard. And if you're the partner to that narcissist, there's usually been quite a long grooming phase before the narcissist lets loose with this level of rage. And it can take quite a lot of effort to sort of undo that grooming and kind of psychological manipulation to kind of get back to a place where you can say, wait a minute, no, you can't treat me that way. In contrast, kids just don't have a whole lot of other alternatives because they're got to at such a young age, typically. So in closing, I would also say that it sometimes isn't just actions that lead the narcissist to feel reminded of their own worthlessness because, say, a kid or partner did not comply with the narcissist's sense of entitlement of being viewed in this inflated way they insist upon. Sometimes it's just the partner's or the kid's existence that can remind the narcissist of their own sense of worthlessness. And in that case, this particular child or partner is sort of unfortunately doomed to be the recipient of this rage, because just by virtue of being who they are, they can evoke that rage in the narcissist. So I hope this gives kind of a brief synopsis of rage, what it can feel like from the narcissist, what it's meant to achieve in the narcissist psychology. And with that background understanding, in the next video we'll get to what it's like to be the recipient of this kind of rage, and what adaptive responses are used in the face of it, and then what can be done to kind of get through the legacy of this sort of treatment. Okay, I look forward to posting that next, and I hope everyone is as healthy and well as can be in these times that we're in.